we thought, Alex and I have been organizing this ahead of time. Alex is going to introduce himself, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll start just kind of learning about what their experience was with automating environmental compliance.
All right. Hey, so yeah, hey, Alex Yellick here. Longtime listener, first time caller at WPA. So I use Wildnote. I'm a consultant and do a number of wetland delineations, and Wildnote has helped ease that process. So
Great. Thanks. And you'll be hearing a lot more from Alex because we have some questions that are kind of, I think they're fun and interesting. So my name is Rini Punzi. Feel welcome to call me Renee because that's what it looks like in writing. I have been with Wildnote since the inception and various roles. Currently, I'm working in sales and strategy. And I had actually retired for a second. And when Kristen told me what she was doing with Wildnote, I came out of retirement because I was really fascinated in how automation might actually help you people help our natural resources. So I really appreciate all of our customers and potential customers and the work you're doing. It's so important. So that's what keeps me going every day, is seeing how I can help you guys. So that said, I'm going to share my screen, I believe. Let's see if I get the right one. Okay, you guys, hopefully, are you still there?
Yep, still here. It's coming up. It looks good. We can see the web browser.
Okay, so it says brief agenda.
Correct.
Okay, great. So I kind of went over this. We did our intros. We're going to be talking about the Anderson engineering story. So what got them motivated to digitize and how that's working out. Both the good and the bad. There's always struggles adopting something new. So we'll be honest as we can about all that. I'm going to do a brief demo, and in that time, we'll continue some of the conversation. I want Alex to chime in with his favorite tips and tricks. And at the end, we want to kind of go out a little bit further than the current reality and talk about, like, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want in something like Wildnote? So I'd like the audience to be thinking about that as well. Like, what would be the best thing to have? And I will share some things that we've tossed around in Wildnote of our wishes. Okay, so that said, oh, this is the poll questions. I'm going to move on because we already talked about the poll. And then this is probably a surprise to Alex, but I looked into the system and I came up with some numbers based on what you guys have been doing for the year and a half that you've been using Wildnote. So the numbers in a year, 1.5 years, almost 1,500 surveys submitted. So 1,482 surveys submitted, 810 photos recorded. I don't know about you guys, but managing photos, even managing my own personal photos, can be a real nightmare. So we can talk about time savings there. And then 456 reports exported with only 3 people in the system. So what do you think of those numbers, Alex?
lots and lots of work right there. So so yeah.
Yeah, it was fun pulling those together. All right. So clearly, as you guys have been hearing about most of the last couple of hours, technology can definitely increase productivity and help teams produce more accurate and timely deliverables. So this is where I want to pull in Alex, because I was really curious about what was the tipping point for Anderson Engineering to adopt a digital workflow. So I imagine you guys have thought about it, but like, what was it? Was it a person? Was it a project? What brought you guys over to the digital side?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was sort of high volume of work, um, linear transportation type projects, and the amount of information that that produces. It's and you have to collect. Beforehand we were doing mostly paper notes, taking cell phone photos, and marking up GIS figure printouts. And when you have so many projects that you're working on, so many resources that span multiple days or even weeks, and you stop, go do something else, start the linear transportation project back up again, it makes things very complicated. And we basically were thinking, this is dumb. There has to be a better way to do this that makes it easier for both the user, reporter, delineator, and that really just saves time overall. And so yeah, I mean, that's really kind of the tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, Really, it was the uh, hand jotted notes with poor handwriting, or mixed up pictures, or whatever. Um, it always takes time to assemble all that stuff, and you know technology should be able to help out with that, and I think it does.
Yeah, interesting. So I think when we were talking last time, you said when you got there was a big project that came along, and that's when you kind of like said, okay, let's make this happen. We've been thinking about it, but with an increased volume of work and the same amount of people, it seemed like the right thing to do. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it was really the you know big linear transportation projects that
Mm-hmm.
really sort of tipped the scale and said, okay, well, we've been doing it, paper notes that way for so long. It's tried and true. It works, but it's also cumbersome, especially when you have multiple delineators working on a single project, different ways and styles of taking notes,
Mm-hmm.
and then different, you know, cell phone photo formats
Oh
and
yeah.
data file exports, and you know, it can get cumbersome and
Mm-hmm.
complicated the more people you've got working on a single project. And so that was us.
Yeah. Um, do you remember back when you guys were first adopting Wildnote? Do you what do you feel like the biggest challenge was? Because I know sometimes it's like, oh, we'd love to do that, but it's a hurdle. Do you remember back to like what the challenges were and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I mean, really, the like with anything, it took some time to understand some of the program styles and exports, and setting up some surveys. But I think we've definitely overcome that and have been able to use the product effectively, I guess.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I'll continue asking you questions about your experience. I want to do a quick high-level view of the Wildnote world. I know there's been other technologies presented. I think we do things a little bit different. I'm not sure because I didn't see the other presentations, but this is a high-level view of Wildnote. And what you see here are two interfaces. There's a web interface and an app interface. So the web interface, think of the comfort of your office, good air conditioning, no bugs. This is where you go to set up your projects. So you'll be picking what survey forms you want. We have a vast library that includes the wetland delineations, which I know a lot of folks are talking about today. And there's additional, all kinds of additional forms for biomonitoring, veg monitoring, SWIP, spill, mitigation bank monitoring, all kinds of stuff in there. So that is where you go to set up your project, like I was saying. You would also invite your teammates. You set up taxonomy favorites. You set up your locations. So when your project is set up, you sync to the cloud. Whoever's going to go out in the field that day syncs their mobile device. We do work on Android and iOS, and it works offline. So you sync to the device, and you go out in the field and you start collecting data. At the end of the day, you sync to the cloud. And this is the first part of the really fun part, I think, because this is where you don't have to do the transcribing. You don't have to read your own bad handwriting or somebody else's. You don't have to manage photos. Boom, it's all there. So back at the web interface again is where you can post-process that data. So we have a nice viewable grid where you can view the bulk of your surveys all at once and compare and quickly go down top to bottom. I can show you what this looks like. You can look at all your surveys that have been collected and make sure the data is accurate. We have additional tools for issue tracking and photo management. I'm not going to have time to show you all that today, but just know this happens on the website. So when you have the data all QA QC'd, this is also where you ultimately go to export your reports. So there's the wetland delineation report, which you can also export to the Esri formats, GeoDatabase and GeoJSON. So we've partnered with Esri and we export to their system. We can also export to Excel, which is really nice. A lot of engineers and scientists love Excel, me included. I love to slice and dice and analyze there. So lots of options for exporting. All right. So that's the high level view. What I want to show you next is just our project layout. So I'll just go to projects here. And you can see several projects here. This is my make-believe company. We're going to mostly be looking at this one here called a wetland project. And I'm going to drag over the mirror of my mobile device because you can see a subset of these projects here. This is because I'm logged into the mobile device as a different user. I'm a super user over here on the website. And here, these are the projects that I would have available to me when I go out in the field. Let's see. I'm going to now ask Alex to kind of guide us through. I can open up an actual form for putting in data, but I know you have some of your favorite tools that you like to use. Do you want to walk me through some of those? And hopefully
Sure.
I'm not totally putting you on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let me go into the wetland project. And here, I know one thing that you talked about was the ability to duplicate forms. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess a lot of times, you can, when you're out delineating, you see a lot of the same things generally. I mean, some landscape positions, A12 is typical. You'll have thick dark surface and depleted matrix, and you'll have reed canary and the secondary hydrology parameters. And no matter how much you sample, you're going to have that. And so it's nice when you've got a lot of those type of resources. You can duplicate a data sheet that you've already done, and then adjust the vegetation appropriately. Change, adjust horizon depths, add redox, whatever.
All right, let's do
and then
that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to take this second one down. So this is your data point 03. I'm going to slide it to the left and then click on duplicate. So now we see here that this is a duplicate. it still has the same data point number, so we'll probably want to go in and update that, make sure we're on the right data point. So I'm just going to click on it to open it up. And this is what the questions look like in Wildnote. So like Alex was saying, some of this data, all this data that's completed is already there because we copied it from the previous one. So for example, let's update this sample point. So I'll click on that. And now I can pick, so you can preload data points. So I could pick data point 05, or a lot of folks prefer to set their data points on the fly while they're out in the field because they don't necessarily know what they're going to be using. So I could click on that again and click this big plus in the upper right. And then I could type in my new data point. When I drop a data point this way from the mobile device, I do also get lat long. So that's a nice option. So now you see I've updated data point 06. Another handy thing that we have is this jump to menu. We call it the stack of hamburgers. So this form is long, as you know. And if you need to jump to another section, you simply scroll down to the section and go there. Do you use that jump menu much, Alex?
Yeah, when you need to update specific areas or specific attributes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Anything in particular you want to talk about as I scroll through here?
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as sort of vegetation monitoring, I really liked, beforehand, you'd have to take, depending on the user's style, they'd use, common name or scientific name or even abbreviations.
Mm-hmm.
And Wildnote here can basically, you can just type in whatever you want to call it and select the species. And even if you have the genus, but the species it was on the tip of your tongue, you can search for genus and then identify the correct species. Another kind of nice little feature that I like, if you are brain farting on a species, plant species, and it's just an unknown at this point, you can actually take a picture of it, and either if it's you can identify it based on that. You can just take a picture of it and identify it later, or you can take a picture of it and then take a sample with you for later office identification. And yeah, and as we're doing is put your notes in there and carry on. So that's been very useful.
Yeah, good points. I'm going to go ahead and open up the species because I wanted to point out all the green items at the top. Those are favorites. So those can be set up ahead of time, or they self-populate. So once you've been in a project and you've collected some data, identified some species, they become favorites. And so that's even faster than typing. But
Yeah,
if it wasn't in my
that's great.
favorites, then the smart search works just fine. I can start typing. I know there's about 1 million oaks, but here's the one I want. I'm not going to try to say the name, and I go ahead and select that. Another thing that's cool, I think, is the offline calculations. So we're doing prevalence, dominance, we populate the indicator status, and we do fact neutral tests. So each time, if we add a new species, I'm going to go ahead and click on that big plus, and then you see the species here. I'll go ahead and pick this guy, and I put in my absolute cover. And you see that the dominant species and indicator status are not completed. But if I click save at the bottom here, those will get filled in. So that's a nice feature as you go along. We also do the matrix colors and textures in the same kind of taxonomy framework. So you can get the favorites and you can get the smart searching. This is kind of funny without getting feedback, but let's see if there's any questions, you can put them in the chat. I'd also like to show you some of our post-processing. So data collection is great. That's the first step. But as you know, you got to go in there and you got to make sure the data is good quality. You got to organize your photos and then you got to get your reports out. So I don't know if there's more that we should show here, but let's just go ahead and save and exit. So I'll hit save and exit at the bottom. And now you see this DP06, that's the one we just updated, has not been synced to the cloud, and neither has this one. I was looking at that a little earlier today. So I can click each of those arrows, or I can go to the top and it'll step through each survey and sync them one at a time. So I'll go ahead and, oops, I missed. So it's syncing, you see the little arrows turning. As soon as those are done, now that data is available for QA, QC, and ultimately exporting. Anything else you wanted to mention on the mobile app side before I jump to the editable grid?
Yeah, I guess I think Karen had a question about if you can designate Great Lakes subregion of the North Central Northeast region to get FAC indicator instead of FAC up as is typically populated. Yeah, actually, we had this issue, and Wildnote was able to integrate a manual override to override the plant indicator. So if you are aware that that species has that little quirk, you can check that box and then adjust the status or the indicator status as appropriate.
Thanks for noticing that question from Colleen. Colleen, I hope that makes sense to you. If you have more questions about that, just let us know. You can also, we can pull in if you have your own taxonomy list or you want to take the one that we have for the region and adjust it, we can put in a taxonomy list just for the work that you're doing and attach that to the survey. So you can have, and then you wouldn't have to do the override. All right, let's get to the editable grid, because I know this is another thing that you were talking about the other day, Alex. So I will go down here to the editable grid and we pick the survey we're looking at. And you see here, there's 6 surveys. You can see, I guess there's 5 because we missed DP05. And then there's a tab for each of the sections in the survey. So I could go to the summary of findings, and here we can see that indeed there were 3 data points that appeared to be a wetland, 1 that didn't, and this one it looks like wasn't completed. So in this case, you could open that survey up by clicking on the survey ID and go in and complete that. So my understanding, maybe somebody was in a hurry. Maybe it was me when I was putting in my sample data. So what I learned from Alex the other day, if any of these 3 answers are no, then the sample point is not a wetland. Is that correct, Alex?
Yes.
So I'm a budding but not very good wetland scientist at this point.
Yeah, and I like this. This is kind of I really like this feature. You know, if you do see an error or omission or something like that, it's pretty easy. You just kind of right click on the survey ID, open up a new tab, change it or fix whatever you need to do, save it, and then refresh that screen, and good to go. So it's really nice for sort of a high level QA QC.
So I'm going to go ahead and do exactly what he just said. So here's our summary of findings. Since this is a no, I'm going to make this guy a no. Then I'm going to save it and we'll update the editable grid and have better data at our fingertips. So that has been updated. I pop back to the editable grid because that's still open and I save or refresh. I guess I got to select this again, go to my summary, and here you see now it's been updated. So that's a workflow that could work for folks. Any other favorites? I think there was one more thing you mentioned, but do you use the gallery much?
Not so much. I usually export the sheets. I mean, the gallery is probably. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can use this, but yeah, I mean, I typically like to just export it. That way, I've got a hard copy on our server, and then we grab photos from that for reports.
One thing, since we had mentioned taking a photo, if you don't know the exact species, if there were a ton of photos, which I would expect more than in my sample database, I could type in here ID unknown. And now it will isolate all the photos. I think I probably mistyped it. This one's before. I think there's got to be a typo either in my search or in my actual ID unknown. Just copy that. Kind of cheating. Oh yeah, I don't know how to spell unknown. So there we go. So it's found my species unknown. This is cool. This little right arrow here will pop me into that survey. And now I'm in context with where that photo was taken and I can finish the photo up, finish the survey, update it, save it, and now it's in my database. All right, let's pop to the exports because that's really what it comes down to. I don't know if I can drag this out of my way. I guess I'll just drag this down. Sorry, guys. All right, so here is an export. These are, this is exported from my sample data. I imagine this form looks very familiar. The beautiful US Army Corps form, including your soil depths. And the way I did this particular export was I did a date range. So you get multiple exports all in one. If there were 4, in this case, there were 5 delineations done, you get all 5 of them and you're good to go. And then the other piece that we've been talking about, the photo export, here is a 4-up version. You get the photos and you get the data points, the date, as well as the caption. So some folks use that for the direction you're facing. Some folks use that for ID unknown, as we just saw, but you get a nice export here. When you're going through that export, you do have the option to include or uncheck photos. So if you took a whole bunch of one thing and really, for your report submittal, you didn't need as many photos, you can just pick and choose which ones you want to include. Do you want to add anything to that, Alex?
Yeah, I think you've pretty much covered it. I mean, there's a couple different photo export styles. I think this is your report style, but you can also do, I forget what you guys call it, but
Oh, the 2-up? Is that what you're thinking? 2-up or 4-up?
Yeah, possibly. It exports kind of the metadata associated with the photo, so it exports the lat long and the
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea.
direction. So you can, for reporting purposes, say if you're standing north or south or whatever.
So I'm going to go to the photo export. pick the survey form, pick the date range. You can filter by sample point if you want to. So I could filter by those. I'm not going to do that. So here's the 2-up and 4-up. So the 2-up is where you get the metadata side by side with the photo. You also get some options here to put in your own headers. So I'm going to go ahead and export this. Shouldn't take too long because I think there's only 4 photos. You do have the option, I don't know if you noticed, but you can reduce the resolution if you have a ton of photos and the report's getting too big. So here's that new photo sheet. And this is what Alex was talking about. You get 2 per page and you get all the metadata. So it shows the project ID, survey date, lat long, speed, heading, altitude, accuracy, and as well as your caption or description. Is this the one that you use most often, Alex?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Jack, maybe you can chime in here. We started a little early. What's our timing? Is it time to start Q&A?
Well, we had you slotted the end of the session to go to 4:30, so you are the last presenter. So if you want to start Q&A now, if that's where you're at, feel free.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do that. I'm going to go back to the presentation because I have a little teaser here, which is Q&A. So if anybody has questions, are we doing this through chat still, Jack?
Yep, through chat, and you can see the chat. I can read them off too if we see them. So everyone, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in. For the free wall charger T-shirt drawing, if I can't figure out how to download that, we'll send out a WPA email that people can send in so we can kind of chart that. So we'll figure that out. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Great.
So I think to start, one of my questions is for subscription and the cost for subscriptions on the agencies and how that works.
Sure. It really depends on the company and how many users they have. We have a pretty simple pricing structure, and it starts with a minimum of 8 users. So 8 users a year is $5,000 annual cost. The cool thing is it's unlimited surveys, unlimited photos, unlimited exported reports, unlimited access to our full library. So that's including additional things if you use other biomonitoring, veg monitoring. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot of explaining.
Yeah, no, that's good. So with the subscriptions, that's 8 subscriptions, and maybe even Alex can talk about how he's used it, but can multiple subscribers connect on the exact same project, or is it kind of, unless you upload it and get it in there, it's single subscriber project based?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jack. So we do organize our data by projects. As you saw, we had that list of projects in the beginning, and you invite your members into the project. They can be in multiple projects, and you are on your own login. So using your email address is how you would log into your device, and that dictates what gets, so whatever projects you're attached to with whatever level, we have different roles, that's dictates what you'll see on your mobile device. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Alex, do you have any comment on that, how you all kind of split the work up internally for your organization?
Yeah. So typically we'll have people kind of work on things as they have time. So in our organization, we'll just have everybody sort of, basically, I think it's like admin. So you're able to edit, export, do whatever. So that way we can kind of spread the work out and just kind of make sure everybody has things to do and work gets done.
Great. So I think that answers it. I'm not seeing too much coming in chat. Probably a good sign that you explained it very well. And we appreciate you coming in. Do you have any closing comments, statements?
Oh, you know what? I wanted to talk about our wish list. I almost forgot that. So
Oh, yeah.
if there's any wishes out there, I would really love to hear them. I know, Alex, you had a couple or an idea of, so like not all software is perfect and we're always continuing to add. So what's something that you would like to add or see different?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the whole power of these electronic data sheets is aggregated data and the ability to do stuff with that. And so I think it'd be one great to have sort of summary exports of all of the data you collect for a project and really just export the important stuff. And it's sort of filtered out or filtered a little bit to kind of make reporting a little bit easier. And I guess just, continual improvement over reducing the amount of time it takes to enter data. Always seems, at a certain point, you're not going to be able to reduce that, but um, I do think that there's probably some potential for that. So
Yeah, I remember we were doing a little like brainstorming when we talked, and you're like, if I could have the editable grid
yeah,
filter somehow. So
right.
one of the things that you were saying is filter all my delineations that actually turned out to be wetlands. And then I'd like to export that and do like a species count or some aggregated way of looking at how many nuisance or native, things like that. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, because when you're doing reporting, it's have to search through the Excel file or you have to search through data sheets, and it'd just be nice if that was sort of condensed a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
to help with the reporting process.
Yeah, I like that idea. Looks like we do have a question from Karen Wold. Alex, can you share how you use the data for your report to prepare a one-page summary for each wetland?
Uh, yeah, I mean, basically just uh, we pull together uh, information from the data sheets and uh, basically just assemble all the information in easy to review manner, I guess.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. I didn't realize you did that. We also do work with customers on custom reports. So if you had like a subset of the wetland data sheet that you wanted, we could definitely work with helping you produce that with fewer steps. So it is 4:30. I'm going to throw my wish out there, which is at Wildnote, as you know, our mission is to help speed up the process and like make these wetland delineations and other environmental reporting streamline. And wouldn't it be great if you could go out and collect the data, come back, review it on your editable grid, QA, QC it, and then pump it directly to the agency. So without sending PDFs that then they would have to tediously go through. So database to database, basically. So you guys can think about that. If there's anybody from those agencies on the phone that likes that idea, I'd love to chat with you. Also, as you see, my email and phone number are up there on the screen. And my last little thing I'd like to throw out there for more information, you can also join, we have a Lunch and Learn next Tuesday. Check out our website. It's going to be on end of the year project planning as well, or next year project planning and end of year analysis. So hope to see you guys again. Thank you, Alex. We're a minute over. I'm sorry about that, but I really appreciate everybody's time.
Great. Thank you, Alex and Rainey, for that great information about Wildnote. And thanks to everyone for joining Wetland Professionals Association today for useful field apps for wetland professionals. So just a couple closing things. Remember, we've got board nominations for WPA board.